Good evening, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us. It's 6 o'clock. This is the Gifted and Talented Enrichment Advisory Council presentation for Northside Independent School District. My name is Roxanne Brown. I'm the GT Program Coordinator for Northside. I do want to let you know this meeting is being recorded. However, you are muted during this presentation, and your camera, we have no access to your camera. If you have questions during tonight's presentation, please, if you'll look at the bottom of your Zoom screen, there's a Q&A area where you can open and type questions that we can try to answer for you throughout the evening. I'm going to turn over our introduction to Ms. Rebecca Hughes. She's our president, and once she's finished, we'll get started with tonight's presentation.
How about I get myself off mute? There we go. Good evening, everyone. Sorry about that. And I'm going to apologize. I don't know what's going on with this beautiful pink hue that I have going on over myself. I was just trying to fix it, but had just gotten in here. So I'm going to leave it just like it is so we can get started and try and stay on time. As Roxanne said, I am the president for GTEAC, and we welcome you here tonight. We are thankful that you're here. We appreciate your time that you're here with us. So just want to make a few announcements before we get started. For those of you that have been around our organization, you know part of what we do is raise funds in order to provide supplies for our GT specialist. And then we also do a fundraiser for our scholarships. So if you were at our last meeting or if you're part of our social media, then you have seen that our social media expert has been sending out information about our Panda Express fundraisers. And so I just wanted to give you the little bit of news about this last fundraiser. We were trying it on Halloween. It was our first time that we've done it on a holiday. And so we didn't do as well as we did our first one, but we did make some money. And so we're very appreciative to everyone who participated. We made $381.56, so not too bad for a night that I'm sure those of you that had little ones were extremely busy. So we appreciate those that did participate in that. We will have a couple of more of those coming up in order to raise funds so we can continue to grow the number of scholarships that we give out, as well as the money that we give for our grants to our GT specialists. So I am going to give you a little bit about our speakers this evening, and I believe Roxanne's going to speak a little bit, which I wasn't sure about, but I do know that we have our speaker this evening, which is Vivian Burleson. She is actually new to our board, so we're grateful to have her on board with us, but she is Northside ISD's GT testing coordinator. So I'm guessing all of you are, or most of you that are on, are probably here because you want to learn more about the CogAT testing and how all that plays into what your students are doing in elementary school in 2nd through 5th. So without further ado, I'm going to let Vivian get started, and then I'll close up with some additional announcements before we let you go this evening. Thank you again for being here. Vivian?
Thank you, Rebecca. I am super happy to be with everyone tonight to share some information about our CogAT process, but also just looking at the scores and how to interpret the scores and what we can do about it, the scores after we test. And so I'm going to go ahead and share my screen, and we'll see if all this good stuff works. So bear with me for just a moment. Let's see how we do here. All right, so looking at everything, are we able to see the screen? We should be able to see the screen. So
Yes,
I'll have,
you can
yes,
see the screen. Yes.
Thank you, Roxanne. Awesome. All right, so we are going to go ahead and get started. I've titled this Decoding CogAT Scores, a Guide for Families. We are going to decode some scores. You're going to learn how to read the reports. You may or may not have gotten some reports. If you have had a second grade kiddo or a fifth grade kiddo, you should have gotten some reports that have gone home either last spring, or if you're a fifth grader student this year in the fall. And so we will get going with this. So first of all, I want to describe what CogAT is. And CogAT stands for the Cognitive Abilities Test. And it is a standardized test that measures cognitive abilities. And when we talk about cognitive abilities, we really, and I'm going to change my view a little bit so I can see my notes here. It refers to a student's readiness to learn in different situations and environments and demonstrate creative problem solving skills. So it really is outside the realm of what is learned in the classroom. It's what all of the experiences that a student has had in his or her life that has led up to where they are right now, and how they perceive the world around them, and how they think through and reason through what is put in front of them. And so it assesses the student's reasoning and problem solving skills. And these skills are really good predictors of success in school beyond just what the content that they learn in the classroom is. So all of our second grade students take CogAT in the spring. All of our fifth grade students take CogAT in the fall. And then any student who is referred for GT testing in any of the other grades also take the CogAT test. So unlike a traditional achievement test, such as MAP testing, that measures how well a student has mastered the curriculum, the content that they're learning in the class. The CogAT shows us how well a child can reason abstractly and identify patterns and relationships in the world around them. And so it focuses on student potential rather than learned knowledge. It focuses more on how a student learns, how they make sense of what is in front of them versus what the student learns. So we can think about it that way, as how a student learns versus what a student learns. The CogAT test and the data that we pull from it helps us identify student strengths and also some areas of growth. And educators use it to tailor instruction to support learning. And that's really the most important use of all, is to adapt instruction to individual student needs. So the CogAT measures 3 different areas of cognitive thinking. It's the verbal, which in each of these batteries of tests, these big sections, there are 3 smaller sections. And so the verbal battery has an analogies section that talks about relationships between vocabulary, between words, between pictures at the lower level, basically the student's ability to analyze written material. So we have analogies, we have sentence completion, which is exactly what it sounds like, and then classification. So finding common attributes between different groups, and then applying that attribute to a new set of pictures or words and finding the best fit in the group. Then we have the quantitative battery, which really, it has an analogy section as well, number series, and then also equations. And the quantitative is more of a numerical and mathematical thinking assessment, where students have to recognize patterns and solve problems with numbers. And then the nonverbal battery has also 3 different sections: analogies, classification, but also paper folding. And paper folding gets really interesting the higher level that you go on our older kiddos. And so essentially what we are looking at are words, numbers, and then pictures, patterns, and space. So it's how students reason and problem solve through these different areas. And so I'm going to share some examples of what some of these look like. You may be curious to see what types of problems that the students have on the CogAT test. Like I said earlier, it does not look like your regular achievement test. And so here are some examples of the verbal section. And so if we look at sentence completion, what I've shown here is kind of our lowest level where when we have kindergarten, first grade, and second grade level testing with CogAT, it's entirely pictorial. They do not have to be able to read in order to understand what's going on. But once we start with third grade testing, there is reading involved. And so I've shown some different examples here. So in our lower levels for sentence completion, students are shown a series of pictures, and then the directions read aloud to them a sentence, and then they choose the picture that best completes that sentence. And so our example is which one swims in the ocean, and that would be the shark. So the student would click on the circle under the shark, and hopefully, and then move on to the next question. So at our upper levels, we have literally fill in the blank with the word that belongs in the sentence. The fastest runner wins the race, things like that. And then on the picture or verbal analogy section, we, in the lower grades, we look at the top two pictures. We have to figure out the relationship. When we talk about analogies, we talk all about relationships. How do two things relate to each other? What is the rule of the relationship? And how do we apply that rule to a new pair of either pictures or words? And so we're looking at the top two boxes. Whatever happens in the top two boxes has to happen in the bottom two boxes. And so we can reason that the man lives in the house, the bird lives, and then they would select, hopefully, the right choice would be in the birdhouse. And then when we're looking at the upper levels, we do the same thing with words. White is to snow, so we have to figure out what that relationship is. Well, snow is white, right? The color of snow is white, and then just as black is too. And so we would need to find something that would have the color black, and that would be coal. And then moving on to picture and verbal classification. So we are grouping things. We are thinking about the ways that items are alike, and then choosing the answer that best belongs with the group. And so we're looking at all of these things in the top pictures, and those are things that are striped. And so you see that the barber pole would be the likely choice for the picture classification. And then in the verbal classification example, we have Indian, Arctic, and Atlantic. Those are all oceans. I need to choose an ocean, and Pacific would be my answer there. So these are all more like puzzles than you can see in like regular classroom work. Now, when we go to the quantitative examples, we see again in the analogies piece, we see some pictures. We have to find the relationship and then apply the rule. And so, in the top two boxes, we're going from 1 star to 2 stars. And so that rule would be to add 1. We need to do the same thing in the bottom two boxes. And so the picture of the 2 beetles works, and so on. When we get over to number puzzles, it's basically finding the missing part. As we get into the upper grades, we have symbols that oftentimes will take the place of actual numbers. And so if you can see in the lower example, we see question mark plus the rhombus equals 9, and we see here that the rhombus equals 5, so you would plug that in. So basically what we're talking about is algebra, and we see some of these as low as 3rd grade where they have to apply these algebraic computations and kind of do some mental math in order to figure things out. And so how these kiddos can reason through things that they may not have seen before. And then when we get into number series, we're really looking at finding the pattern and then applying that pattern to find what comes next in the series. And so with the beads on strings, we would see that we have a 3-2-1 a 4-3-2 pattern, 4-3-2, and so our next answer would be 4 again. And then in the upper grades, we have 1, 2, then 4, then 5, then 7, then 8. we're seeing a +1 and then a +2 and then a +1, then a +2 and so on. And so our answer after 8 would be D10. So those are our quantitative examples to give you an idea of what our students have to go through on that battery. And of course, when they get into the really upper grades, into middle school and high school, they get very a lot more challenging. These are some basic, simple examples. And then we have nonverbal examples. And so we're looking at spatial reasoning here, patterns within pictures and imagining what goes on with things. So with the figure matrices, we're looking at those relationships again. It's essentially an analogy, just like the other two batteries had, and then applying that rule. Figure classification, again, figuring out how the first three figures are similar, and then choosing that figure that belongs with the group. And then paper folding gets really crazy. So students have to observe what's going on step by step with a piece of paper that's being folded and then cut. Sometimes there's holes punched out, and we see the final product kind of at the end. We start at the paper and then we fold it. We see what it looks like when it's folded. Now it's being cut, and now we see the final product. And what the student is tasked with doing is predicting what the paper is going to look like when it is unfolded again, when it is opened. And in this case, we would have the first answer as a triangle be that correct one. And so it gets really involved. Like I said, in the upper grades, and it really is a challenge. And a lot of times we can see a difference in our kiddos when we are testing them, that we have kiddos that like this really bogs them down, or this really kind of lights their fire. We have students that are up to the challenge and love this. And when they get finished testing, they're like, can I have more? And, when we have that, we know that, some of these kiddos just might be gifted as if this is what they're really tuning into, and being successful with that kind of ability and reasoning. So those are just some examples of what the test actually looks like. And so by the time the kiddos finish their testing, we get scores back and everything. We want to communicate those with you. And so you may have seen this report before, and this is the student profile narrative that is generated by Riverside, the publisher of the test. And so if you have a second grader or a fifth grader, like I said, most of you will have seen this before, but I really wanted to take some time and explain what it looks like, what the information is on the page, and how we use it, both in the classroom and how you can use it at home to help your students develop and grow more reasoning skills. And so the basic outline of what we have here is we have some different sections that have the scores. And so there's a standard age score that we have. We have a stay 9. We have an age percentile rank up here with each of the batteries, the verbal, quantitative, and nonverbal. And then there's a composite score that you may see on here, depending on what filters your campus specialist may have used to print it out. And then you have down below that the raw scores. So you see the number of items that were in the battery, the number of attempted items. Did the student answer them all, or did they skip some? It is okay if they choose to skip some. We do not require, or we cannot require that they answer them all. We can encourage them, but if they choose not to answer, then that is up to them. And then the number correct that they got. So they have the raw scores here. And then sometimes you may see a grade percentile rank. What we are going to focus on now is the right-hand side. There's an overview of just basically what the CogAT test is, the profile of test scores, which gives a general statement about the student's overall performance in each of the batteries, and then some suggestions on how we can support the student. So in this one, we see that there's some verbal reasoning skills that need to be encouraged because that's a relative weakness for this student. And so it gives some suggestions here. And so what I want to focus on at this piece is this category right here, the age percentile rank. Now, CogAT scores are nationally normed, and so they've done the research and they've normed with other students of the same age when they take it, when they take the focus group, when they've taken the test, they norm them. And so when we look at those scores, 50 is average. And so it's not like a grade in school. It's not like you've made 100 and that's a perfect score. It's not like 70 is passing. What we really say is, of all the students who have taken this test across the nation, 50 is average. It's normal. So about 50% have performed better and about 50% have performed lower. And when we look at the age percentile rank, we are talking about students who are at the same age as your child. And so and it goes down to within just a few months. So if your student is 8 years and 4 months old, it's going to compare your student with other students who are 8 years and 4-ish months old within a month or two either way. And so that differs from the grade percentile rank, because we can have an 8-year-old an 8-year, 4-month old in second grade, or if they've skipped a grade, they could be in third grade, or if they were retained, they could be in first grade. The really neat thing about CogAT is that it adapts to that age, and that age of your child is not changing when they take that test. The grade could change, either way, but the age does not. And so when we look at qualifying scores for GT services, we look at the age percentile rank. And so when you get that report at home, that's what we would look at for qualifying purposes. And there's another category that I want to show you, and this is the age stay-nines. So the stay-nines that CogAT uses are general grouping stay-nines. So they're going to group these students in basic ability groups and general groups to kind of give us who's average, who's above average, who's exceptionally above average, who's low average, and then who's lower. So it indicates a general level of reasoning ability. And so the composite, the overall stay-nine that we see is really the median or the middle stay-nine. So in this example, we see that the verbal stay-nine was a 6, the quantitative stay-nine was an 8, and the nonverbal stay-nine is a 9. But that midpoint, that median stay-nine is an 8. So the overall stay-nine on his ability would be the 8 for this. Now that's going to lead us into some uses for the stay-nine in just a moment. When we talk about stay-nines and those general uses, this is really what we're looking at. We're looking at, again, 50, 40-ish, or the fourth stay-nine to the sixth stay-nine being average. So if your child is somewhere in between that, they're in the average range, and that is okay. They're not failing anything. They're average in ability, and that is just fine. Our stay-nines 2 and 3 are below average. Our stay-nine 1 is very low, but then we have the above average range as well. And so we have stay-nine 7 and 8 are above average, and then stay-nine 9 is exceptionally high. So it's very high. And something I want you to notice here is when we look at the percentile rank, when we're looking at that APR score, you see the scores here and how they relate to the stay-nines. And so when we think about the stay-nine of the student who is in the 9th stay-nine, they're really kind of a different animal when we talk about ability, because those percentile ranks are between the 96th percentile and the 99th percentile, which is exceptionally high. And then a lot of our students that qualify for GT services, of course, are in the 9th stay-nine, but we even have students who have on some of their ability testing, on some of the batteries, have scores that fall more into the 7th and 8th stay 9. So that's really the bulk of our gifted population across Northside is in the 7th or 8th stay 9, with some in the 9th stay 9 as well. So these scores all reflect the cognitive abilities that are crucial for learning. So it's their readiness to learn, it's how they learn, what their strengths are, and then that informs instructional planning at school. That's the goal. So moving on to another piece of the profile narrative is the ability profile. So this overall combination of numbers and letters that help inform us about where the student really is. What are our students' strengths? What are our students' weaknesses? And so that is listed at the bottom if you have scores that are all three there. And so we have that there that helps give us some details on how we can support our students both in the classroom and at home with their learning. Okay, so looking closer at the ability profile. This example, we see that a 7C with a V plus Q minus, and it gets really like, it's hard to remember sometimes what everything means. That's why we have a website that you can go to figure out what that is. And essentially, we have that number that is the median ability grouping, right? And then we have a pattern. And essentially, we could get into the weeds about this, but an A pattern is like the scores are roughly at the same level. B, there's one that's usually above or a score that's significantly below the other two. C, there's a contrast, which there's a relative strength and a relative weakness, or an E profile that means that there's one score that's way below the other scores. And so that's just kind of generally how to read the ability profile. But we're going to take a look at it excuse me just a second, in action for just a moment. So I'm going to click on the link here, and we will be sharing this presentation with you. Your GT specialist will share this out with you. All right, so this is the website, and if you go to CogAT.com, you can have that there with you. And so if we plug in the stay 9 number, which this case we're going to do 7, and we're just going to copy it here, profile C, and then it shows us all of the options. In this case, we're going to choose the verbal plus quantitative minus. So this is saying that there's a verbal strength and a quantitative relative weakness. And so we're going to click on that one and submit it. And then here's the result of that. And so these are all categories that you can expand, and you can learn about this type of learner. You can get some information on typical areas of strength, how these learners learn best. It gives you some things to look for potential areas of challenge, and also some specific strategies to support these learners. So this is really helpful both in the classroom and outside of the classroom as well. So that's the website. And the neat thing about this too is that if we print the ability profile, then it comes up with a really nice little one-pager that summarizes all of that information. And so that's a really quick kind of reference guide that we can use to better help us understand our students in the classroom and at home. Now I'm going to hop back on to the presentation from the website. And pulling over my little screen here. All right. So we just saw this on the website, that one pager that we like. And so how do we use this information in the classroom? We, at the district, we have rolled this out to Each campus GT specialist, we did a training on November 4th about how we can support our classroom teachers on campus using this information. And so that's going to be slowly rolling out over the next year or so on how we can better support in the classroom using this information. It is a process. It is a work in progress. And so it is one tool that we can use to help inform how we instruct and differentiate for our students. So we use this to group students to provide differentiation. We use it to tailor instruction to address specific cognitive strengths and academic needs. We use it to help provide appropriate challenges to prevent boredom and underachievement, and then also supporting areas where cognitive abilities and academic performance may not align. If their ability is way up here, and their academic progress, maybe their MAP scores are way low, we need to figure out why there's a gap. If their abilities are really high, but their achievement is really low, we need to figure out where the learning gaps are. So again, this takes time, and we are working on it. But as we learn more strategies that we can use in the classroom, then we can do better for differentiating for our students. And so again, this is just another tool that our teachers can use in the classroom, and your GT specialists on campus can help support with this. Now let's get to the piece that you're really here for. So how can we use this information at home? And really, it's just something, ideas that you can use to supplement what you're already doing. So tap into family life. What are you already doing that supports your student strengths? So if you know that your student is, strong in verbal skills, how can we encourage those strengths to develop even more? How can we use those verbal strengths to shore up some of our other weaknesses, relative weaknesses, maybe in number sense, quantitative, or in nonverbal? How can we do that? So we can engage in activities that support all of our reasoning areas. We can encourage those strengths and provide support for those weaknesses. And we can set up an environment that supports learning. Being enthusiastic about what your child learns in school is a great thing. And I know that families are busy. I know that sometimes when we get home, myself included, I have two kiddos that are at home that are GT kiddos, and one's in middle school and one's in high school. And sometimes it's one of those things where, we ask, what'd you do today? And they say nothing. And we're like, okay, I checked the box. I asked, they told me nothing. We can move on with dinner or whatever, because we're all tired, right? But really, we can do better for our kiddos, and we can do it little bits at a time. And so this is meant to just bring awareness to discover opportunities on growing and strengthening skills. So building habits of motivation and persistence, because a lot of our kiddos, especially gifted ones, they think that the idea of smart is that it comes easily to them. And that's really a misconception. We have lots of smart people, very intelligent people, where things don't necessarily come easily. And so if something doesn't come easily, some of our kiddos think that they're not smart anymore, but that's not the case. It's just that they haven't learned it yet. And so really encouraging that persistence to work through things that they haven't seen before, or work through things that don't come easily to them. That's all part of the learning process that we can encourage at home. So let's get to some specific things that we can do at home to help. So some specific strategies. So how do we support reasoning skills at home? Verbal skills, we can engage in dinner conversations. Like I know that we're running to baseball and basketball practice and all of those things, but striking up a conversation at dinner is a great way that we can help encourage those verbal skills. Sharing family stories, retelling family stories, kind of our the stories of our families passed down through the years. We used to do it all the time generations ago. Encouraging that type of thing is always, always great. Reading aloud together, even if they're older, getting some books that they're really interested in, discussing books, movies, TV shows, having your own book club if you're reading the same, especially if they're older, if you're reading the same kind of book, and having your own home book club if you're a big reader and your student's a reader, encouraging things like that. Um, Playing word games, telling jokes, puns are a great way to encourage that thinking of making those connections and finding those relationships between words. And then some ways that we can encourage the quantitative skills are practicing grocery store math when you're going to the grocery store, adding things up, either keeping it, on a piece of paper or trying to do mental math with estimation, rounding up to the next dollar, budgeting as you go along. Noticing, good heavens, the inflation prices, right? So how prices have gone up over the years, and compare them to last week's prices and that kind of things. Cooking together, using recipes, learning how to use a recipe, doubling a recipe or cutting a recipe in half, those types of things. So these are all things that we kind of do anyway in the normal routine of our day, but we can use them intentionally to provide learning opportunities for our students. So schedules, to-do lists, calendars, agendas, those types of things. Playing board games is a really great way to help those skills, especially if they involve strategy and numbers, and discuss saving money and budgeting. And then on nonverbal, when we're looking at spatial reasoning, which I'll admit is probably my greatest weakness, I can go out to the parking lot and lose my car all the time. But doing puzzles together, rearranging furniture, organizing your space, thinking about how things fit within a space, engaging in arts and crafts, how do things look like together? Legos, of course. Legos are great. Using building blocks as well, playing with those, practicing reading maps, or even on your navigation, like where do you think planning a trip before you use the navigation, all of those things. Figuring out which the best route is, if we use Waze or Google Maps or Apple Maps, whatever we're doing. Having conversations around those on what we think is the best and most efficient route. Those are all ways that we can support these skills at home. Another way that we can support learning at home is to talk with your child, asking open-ended questions. So bringing it more beyond the what did you do today, nothing, that kind of thing, which is what my own kiddos tend to do. Asking open-ended questions. Well, why do you think that? Showing genuine curiosity about what they are doing, modeling lifelong learning yourself. We all are continuously learning. And when you're curious about the world around you, that's going to naturally bring on some questions that you have. So talking about the questions you have or your kiddos have about the way that the world works. So asking why or how do you feel about that? Keeping in mind that a growth mindset is what is needed to really keep that learning going. So we can grow and improve our abilities through effort, asking for help, trying new strategies, and really we think about the power of yet, right? I may not be good at something yet. And so we know that these kiddos have natural abilities, and some of that is ingrained and in them based on their life experiences so far, but they can be grown to a certain extent. And so, encouraging a growth mindset and praising effort and persistence more than just, oh, you're so smart, but the effort that you put in and the persistence through something that's tough is really going to be more beneficial to the student than, oh, great job, you're super smart. And then discussing openly the student's strengths and areas for improvement, not in a way that may make the student feel bad, but in ways of encouraging them and, okay, how can we grow next? What can we do next? And so just praising that effort and persistence. And so we have a few more some more reminders for you. So when we think about CogAT, we have to remember that it's just one measure of ability. We have MAP testing that measures achievement. We have lots of different things. We have STAR at the end of the year for our STAR grades. We have formative assessments and common assessments within the classroom. So it's just one measure that helps fill in all the pieces of the puzzle to make your kiddo who they really are. Keep in mind that scores can vary due to external factors. We know that when we give CogAT, those individual batteries, that is a snapshot. And so if a kiddo is sick or something happened, maybe at home that day, and their mind is just not on the test that day, we have to keep that in mind. Sometimes if they don't do as well as we think they will, and so sometimes it just doesn't happen for us that day, and that's okay. Focusing on your child's unique qualities and potential. They all have immense potential to learn more and to be successful, and really tapping into their interest, encouraging them to grow those qualities and realize their potential is a great thing to do. Using the results that we see here on the student profile narrative to support learning, not necessarily say to define limits, like not necessarily, well, you're not so great in this, but let's move on. Like making sure that we encourage our students to shore up their weaknesses by using their strengths. And then, of course, collaborate with your teachers to support your child's growth. Making sure that those lines are open, asking questions, being curious about, how differentiation is going on in the classroom, but also being supportive of what's going on in the classroom, keeping in mind that, teachers have a really hard job to do with lots of kiddos in the classroom and seemingly more stress than ever before, but really becoming a partner in your child's education to support and help them grow. And so I have included some resources for you that we will share. Your GT specialist on campus will share those out once the recording gets processed and shared with them. Here are some more resources that you can go to for more information. So we have the CogAT website, cogat.com, some specific articles that you can use is how to support your learner at home, how to talk with your child about their learning. It just goes into more detail than what I have gone over, just an overview today. Some really cool resources are in that second section, some games and conversation starters. If you want concrete ways that you can help your students strengthen their ability skills, these games are really, really good, and they are categorized into the verbal section, into the quantitative section, into the nonverbal section. And so those are games that some of them are very old and we grew up playing them. Some of them are newer. And so there are links to where you can find them on Amazon. So there's some pricing guides, things like that. So that Charleston County School District CogAT Aligned game list is really a pretty comprehensive list on some things. And, it's November. It's almost the Christmas season. And so if you're looking for some really useful gift ideas, this would be a good place to find those. And then a couple of family conversation starters for you, whether it's around the dinner table or in the car. The Family Conversation Jar and also the Family Dinner Project has some suggestions for you there. And then a couple of books that I included that helped inform this presentation. It kind of gives us the why of why we're using CogAT and what to do with it. Mindset, the New Psychology of Success by Carol Dweck, and How to Talk So Kids Will Listen and Listen So Kids Will Talk by Adele Faber and Elaine Moslish. Those are some great resources that you can use. So that was pretty fast and furious. I have included my contact information at the end of the presentation here when it's shared. And I think we have some time that we can do some Q&A if there's any questions. So I'm going to ask Roxanne to hop back on here. I'm going to stop sharing my screen. And so
I'm trying to start my video.
I gotcha.
We only had 2 questions during
Okay.
tonight's presentation, and I've answered both of those.
Okay.
Um, um, we had someone ask, I'm not sure if you're monitoring the Q&A, anyone on here, but someone asked if this presentation will be available. Yes, it will be sent out to all of our campus GT specialists, and they normally send out a link in their GT newsletter. We also have it posted. It'll be posted as soon as we get it and kind of get it edited just a little bit. It'll be posted on our YouTube channel, which is titled GTEAC Secretary and Social Media. So you can find it those 2 places. I will make sure that we send out a page that has the links that Vivian gave. We'll send out a separate resource so that your GT specialist can also put that in newsletters in case you want to take a look at any of those resources again. We had another question about when students take tests. So as a reminder, Vivian said that at the beginning, all of our 2nd graders in Northside take the CogAT in the spring of 2nd grade. Normally it's during February, and all of our 5th graders in Northside take the CogAT. It's usually been in September. I'm thinking it'll still stay in September, even though we are starting school a little earlier. So someone has asked, can we receive info on how GT is incorporated into middle school? There is information on our website. If you go to nisd.net and look under advanced academics, you can find all kinds of information. But basically at middle school, if your child's attending a non-magnet middle school, there's a course called Innovative Thinkers. That's a 6th grade, 7th grade, and 8th grade course that GT students should be automatically enrolled in. Where they will be in a class with their GT peers and the GT campus specialist. They have a variety of things in their curriculum. You can read more about that online or reach out to your campus specialist. If you have a current 5th grader, in the next few weeks, the middle school GT specialist will be coming down to elementary to meet your child and to talk to the group a little bit about what the 6th grade Innovative Thinkers class is like. Someone has asked, do middle school and high schoolers take the CogAT? We do not give grade level, like whole grade level CogATs in middle or high school, just in the elementary. But if a student is testing to get into the gifted and talented program, the CogAT is one of the tests we use. Someone has said, we got a score sheet for my son. It looks different. It only shows quantitative verbal and nonverbal scores. I would reach out to your campus GT specialist to see if they can provide an explanation for that. And if they can't, you can always contact Vivian or myself, and we can see what exactly it is that you have.
Sometimes I will say, yeah,
Go
I
ahead.
will say that sometimes because we use the percentile rank usually is the most common use for it, then that may be the reason why the report was filtered through that lens. But we can always refilter. It's just a series of check marks on what you can include. And so if you want more information included on that report, you can reach out to your GT specialist and they can do that for you. I did also see a question about how the composite score is calculated. That is a combination of the verbal, the quantitative, and the nonverbal all combined together to provide that overall composite score. And that's where we find that that overall stay 9 and ability profile there.
Okay, so that was
Okay.
you answered the composite score one, correct? I'm sorry,
Yes.
I'm trying to kind of clean this up. For the parent that asked about copies of your previous test results, if you would reach out to your campus GT specialist, they should probably be able to get that for you.
Okay.
I have a parent asking, I'll let you get that kinder one in
The
just a
kinder one? Okay.
I have another parent asking, are GT students grouped together in 6th grade academic classes in addition to innovative thinkers? No, they are not. They are just grouped together with GT peers during the innovative thinkers class. And there's various levels of classes that students can take throughout middle school. There's some advanced classes and then more on-level classes. All right, Vivian, I'll let you pick up the kinder question.
Okay, so this question is, I have a child in kinder. They're currently taking the CogAT. What are other diagnostics that are being used for kinder? So actually at this time, kindergarten students across the district are being screened. So they are not taking CogAT yet. CogAT is not used in kindergarten as the universal screener. However, we do screen our students based on the basic format of CogAT because we want to make sure our screening aligns with the type of assessment that we use when students are going through the formal testing process. And so the kinder screening process uses a screener that's in verbal, quantitative, and nonverbal. So it's not the official CogAT, but it is formatted after. But we also consider the top 10% of, and this is all they have to meet a certain amount of criteria. So 4 out of the following 7 criteria must be met for us to recommend a student for GT testing in kindergarten. And so 3 of those are those 3 CogATs, or the 3 screeners that are modeled after CogAT. And then we look at the top 10% of the grade level for MAP math scores in kindergarten and also reading. So those are 5, but we also look at teacher recommendations and parent recommendations as well. So parents are always welcome to refer their child for GT testing in kindergarten. If they do not do well on the screeners, there may be a conversation with the GT specialist that may encourage you to wait until 1st grade, because if the student does not do well on the screeners or on MAP, then the chances are they're not going to do great on the actual formal CogAT test in January. And so we would encourage just waiting for a little bit more growth through the rest of that kindergarten year and into 1st grade, and waiting until 1st grade to refer and formally test the student. The CogAT test is valid for 2 years. And so once you test, you do not test again the next year. That's because of some question overlap. That's because of the validity of the test. The chances of taking the test and scoring within the same range from 1 year to the next is very, very high. And so once we give a CogAT test, the student usually is not tested again for 2 years. And so if you have a student who tests in kindergarten and does not qualify for services, the next opportunity to take CogAT will then be in 2nd grade, when we universally screen everyone using CogAT. Okay.
Thank you,
Hopefully
Vivian.
that clarifies kinder a little bit better for you.
We have another question again about middle school. So once again, if you have a student going into middle school, I encourage you to look online at nisd.net, and under programs, go to advanced academics and then click into gifted and talented. You'll see there's a page for middle school. There's a specific class for 6th, 7th, and 8th graders called Innovative Thinkers. So when you're asking how much time per week, they will be in that class, 1 class period every day. Yes, there are projects that they are doing that are a part of the class. That's part of the curriculum for the class. If you have more questions about the middle school program, I encourage you to reach out to the middle school specialist at the campus that your child will be going to. I did not mention that if your child is attending a magnet school, there is no room in their schedule for the Innovative Thinkers course. So students that attend magnet schools, their teachers, the magnet teachers, have all received 30 hours of GT training, and their differentiation is through their curriculum in their class. And you would need to speak to a magnet teacher to find out more information about what that differentiation looks like in that specific classroom. All right, I don't think we have any more questions. Rebecca, do you have any parting words before we sign off?
I do. I am going to give a few more things out. So just want to remind you, if you're not connected to our social media, please get out there and get connected. We also send out reminds. So if you're used to the remind system, you can still sign up for that. And that way you can get notifications about our meetings. We do have some upcoming meetings, January 23rd, February 27th, and April 10th. So we will have those posted out on our Facebook page as events. And then again, we'll make announcements on social media with those topics coming forward. We are going to work on, if you participated in our t-shirt fundraiser, we're working on a few issues. So I just want to share that with you as well. We're getting them resolved. So if you're one of those parents that unfortunately you're still waiting on a shirt, we're getting them to you. So we're working on it as quick as we can, and we apologize for the delay. So again, thank you again for being with us tonight. Vivian, thank you for all the great information. We truly appreciate you. Roxanne, thanks for helping us answer the questions and get through the chat. And so we look forward to seeing everyone again in the new year, January 23rd. So I know our social media queen that's on our board. And again, if you haven't seen our board members, get on social media. We've got everybody listed out there, but Liz, our social media person, does a wonderful job, and I'm sure we'll be sending out well wishes for Thanksgiving and the rest of the holidays. So thank you again, and have a good evening.
Thank you, everyone.
We do have people asking, what is the Facebook page to search for?
It is under, and I have it bookmarked, so I haven't looked at it in a long time. I don't know if Liz is on. Liz, if you're on, can you type into the questions and answers and give them that?
I'm looking for what it is on Instagram.
Yeah, give me just a second. I can look it up.
It looks like, thank you, Phil.
Oh, Phil found it. Let's see
yes,
what it
thank
is.
you. Sorry, I had to get a new phone and it signed me out of everything, so I'm not getting in anywhere very quickly.
I have our district social media is NISD GTAA. Oh, here she's got facebook.com NISD GTEAC. I'm going to type our answer here. So Instagram, we have NISD GTAA. That's our district one. Let's see if Liz also put the, I think it's NISD GTEAC is maybe our Instagram. Oh, yes. Thank you, Liz.
I'm going to get there. Thank you,
At
Liz.
NISD GTEAC for Twitter and Instagram. All right. Thank you, everybody, so much. I'm going to stop recording now.